female entrepreneurs turned besties share on life, business, and the journey through the mess. Join their community with every new episode for connection, education, a few laughs, and the hype energy like a bathroom full of drunk girls at a bar. It's okay.
We're your friends now!
Okay, before we get really, really going, I just have to explain my comment of being in tug of war with the universe right now.
Yeah.
Because I have put myself in the room with people who refuse to let me do anything besides show up authentically in the moment in the best way that I can.
Yeah.
And the difference between those weirdos in my life and the people who are not in my life, like not those weirdos in my life, is astonishing. And I'm realizing this upper limit problem I have is letting go of those people.
Ooh.
And like actually leaning in. And it's very apparent, Katie, for me to like bring it up back to like one of the very beginning conversations you and I had where you broke it down to me like a dumbass.
Lovingly.
Lovingly, because it's sunk in that the energy exchange when you are with your people is like good. And basically now I'm meeting more people in my life besides just you and Ashleigh that are creating a different, I would like almost call it echo chamber, but that sounds negative, but it's not. It's like actually like arriving into the room that I've been standing in. If that's like the way that I'm feeling, but there's like resistance, right? Because it's comfortable over here in this corner, or it's like the habit of like girls get into, right? Whenever they break up with like a boyfriend breaks up with them and then they lower their standards so they can like stay on the pedestal, like that habit. And it's like, I recognize that, but like I'm actually like in the room. And the difference is that all of the other rooms that I've been in, it's a lot of like talkers, a lot of dreamers. And then like in that goal setting retreat, Jay talked about like there's dreamers with the doer problem and doers with the dreaming problem. And like to be in a room of people who are as much, if not more, doers than me naturally, and us be on the journey of figuring out how to dream again and having that appreciation is just such an incredibly fortunate place to be. And I am so grateful. And like at the same time, I'm having these wildly dramatic like slaps across the face of like learning lessons, sometimes like even in the same day, like hour to hour, like I'm caught in the turbulence right now. And I'm really proud of my mindfulness. And it is so like I attribute a lot of that to the women that I'm standing next to because they're grounding me, because they're holding me to these higher standard that they see in me, that like when the very beginning when I joined the Empire Circle, when I was like, I can't diminish my own validity without diminishing theirs, and like that's impossible. And like getting caught in that warp and what that was like. And like now at like a renewal, like understanding the magic that I bring to the circle table just there because I'm actually allowing myself to like listen and lean in and do, and like people are showing up in very affirming ways, like what you've always done for me, Katie. And like I just got to tell you thank you, because that was arguably, I mean, you cracked that door there, for me. And it's like in one ways it's because you saw it in me first. So thank you for planting the seed. I have been nourishing it well over the past 2 years, and I'm very much in the thick of it, but I now have the bravery and the courage to understand that, like, and understand my core value that the meaning of the only way out is through, and like that, like, but boogeymen, like Ashleigh, like, you know, knowing, like, when you first said, like, when you're scared of something, that's a trigger that, you know, you need to run towards it. And like that has been something that I've mulled over in me over these times. And like I've proven it over and over again with y'all's support and like encouragement to be brave, that I'm not gonna die on no matter what on the other side, to eventually, like, honestly, even through your boundaries, like teaching me that I got to do that for myself, you know, and like loving me by forcing me into the rooms where I learn that. And like that is just so supportive, and like real support to me. And I understand that now. And I really do. I appreciate it. And it's a really beautiful spot to be, and it's also very difficult right now to like fully break through this upper limit. And so I appreciate you guys letting me run through that monologue just so I can kind of check in, so you can like see me and connect and like understand that I am like whole insane when I'm saying this, because I know there's a lot of chaos. But yeah, I'm proud of myself through all the chaos, and I'm really excited about all of this stuff. And like it's true, like when you find your people, you just have your people, and they're out there, man. If you do not feel this way yet, it's like you say, you just gotta go meet more people, because they're there, man. They're there. It doesn't matter where they are either. So yay, technology. Okay. Hi everybody, it's Biz.
Hey, it's Katie.
It's Ashleigh. And today, even though she's only here in spirit, Martha Stewart is with us.
Wait, let me try.
Mind and soul.
Hi, I'm Martha. Wait, how do you? She has like such a low, like. I'm Martha.
I was like a
I'm Martha
throat
Stewart.
fry, like
Yeah, like Martha Stewart. Martha Stewart.
I just, you know,
I don't think I can do it.
I can't think of a
Even
pretentious
tone,
thing. Do it,
but
Ashleigh. You're good at this. You're
No,
good
I
at
have
this.
to practice. I don't do impressions like on the fly. I have to really rehearse them.
Do
Well,
there is
I
no
was
try.
hoping you would host this entire episode in a Martha Stewart voice.
Today it's Martha Day, and we talked about this like several weeks in a row. The Martha Stewart documentary came out a month or two ago, and the entire world was blown away by getting to know Martha Stewart and finding out she is nothing like you thought she was.
Literally nothing.
Surprise,
No.
motherfucker. Like, I mean, if that was ever appropriate, like soundbite.
She that documentary blew me away. I was not a Martha Stewart stan. Like I didn't.
What does that mean? What does stan mean?
Like
Never
a
mind.
fan.
I'll look it up.
Yeah, it's just being a fan. And I don't know, it wasn't, when her whole thing happened of going to jail and she came out, she became friends with Snoop Dogg. It was kind of like, ah ha ha, that's so funny, you know, like all the jokes about it. And I appreciated those in a way, but I never grabbed onto her as a character or a person or like, and you know, and then all of a sudden she released that Sports Illustrated magazine cover.
Yeah.
Like last year, I think. Do you guys remember that?
Yeah.
And it was like, holy shit, how old is Martha? And how does she look like that? And what has she had done? When did she have it done? Let me take my notes, because she's the oldest swimsuit cover model for Sports Illustrated. And then she started releasing thirst traps on social media. And then, you know, you start paying attention and this documentary came out, and I have so many thoughts on it. I think it, you know, it got so much attention because of some of the real funny quotes, and we'll go over some of my favorites. But I also think it's much more layered than people give it credit for.
Yeah.
Or if you consider the decade and the time and the culture that Martha Stewart was growing up in, that she was a stockbroker during the times when there really were not female stockbrokers.
Yeah.
The sexism she would have endured. I mean, there was no reporting that to HR. HR wouldn't give a shit. HR
was probably doing it.
HR was probably doing it. And if you did report it, you became the woman that like, oh, this is why we don't hire women.
Right. Yeah.
So I think she glossed over that because she did mention, I won't say the things that happened in the back
Right.
of these taxis. And
Right.
so you're like, and people just latched on to the fun parts and completely missed some of the things that as a woman that she's experienced and gone through are
Yeah.
deep.
Yeah.
It's
Intense.
it's
Yeah.
intense. I mean, and so I guess one of the ones I want to talk about is that as a woman, at her age especially, being culturally relevant is hard. Like,
What was
Yeah.
she exactly? Do you have it? I don't remember.
isn't she like 84?
I was
Fuck
gonna say
no.
83.
What?
Okay,
What?
Martha Stewart,
She's
eight-
83.
83.
Yeah.
No way. I thought she
Yeah.
was like 73.
No.
Like,
Yeah,
that's
no,
an important decade, man. Dang.
Yeah.
Dang. I
Well,
love her.
when you think about like other women her age who have been culturally relevant, or at least like people are excited about them or admired, right? Like I immediately think of Betty White, and
Mhm.
people, again, she was mostly known because she was hysterical. I think some people admired things that she had accomplished, but it was mostly because she was really funny, and as she got older she got funnier.
Yeah.
But for Martha Stewart to be 83 and really living in most people's prime, not even most people's, what most people aspire for their prime to be, right? And she's like picking up this whole new era of her career.
Yeah. I mean, it's intense to the number of women that maintain cultural relevancy throughout. And there's some that become like there's some TikTok and Instagram influencers that become famous, and it's because they're like posting fashion and they're in their 70s or 80s and it's very inspiring. So they become culturally relevant. But to maintain cultural relevancy from a young age and then to continue to have it now as a woman is crazy, because you think about like famous people like George Clooney, he stays culturally relevant. And like, what's the last thing he acted in? I couldn't even tell you, but I've seen his name in headlines because society just is that way.
Yeah.
And like even Taylor Swift, if you've watched her documentary, not the Eras one, but it's from like oh, it can't be 4 years ago, 8 years ago. I don't even want to say it. It's probably 8 years ago. That's insane. Anyways, and her documentary, and she talks about how to maintain cultural relevancy as a woman in the music business, you have to reinvent yourself every
Yeah.
single time. And that's like Madonna, Cher.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
Totally reinvent themselves, and they have to be very vulnerable and share personal things to help people relate to them. And it's just so interesting to me because Martha did not do that.
No.
You know what's
The
interesting?
opposite.
Did they ask her at all in the documentary why she did it? Why she did the documentary?
I think that
Like
they did.
directly? Okay.
I
I want to
want
go
to
back
say
and
it's
ask.
because she felt like she hadn't really shared her story before. But it's also interesting because she's not a touchy-feely therapeutic person.
No. Well, and
And
it's
so
funny
it's
to me
really
if
interesting.
that was her answer, because like saying she hadn't shared her story, she still didn't share a whole lot that couldn't. I mean, I don't think a lot of people put all the pieces together, but when they pushed her for further insight on something, there were many things that she would give facts, but she wouldn't give like a deeper look. It's not like she wanted to
You know,
share what it
I
was
kind
like to be Martha Stewart.
I
No,
kind
so
of love that though, because it's like the ultimate fuck you. Because all of those people watch that shit in their own
Yeah.
bedroom, cozied up with their little Netflix remote, and like the clearest kind and like facts, and like it's just fucking poetry is what it is. Like, I mean, if you look at it that way, like, and I loved I talked about this with my friend Susie, who's 40 years older than me. So she's she'll be 77 in January. And it was really interesting, like her perspective, because like I admire Susie as like a real life example of like a businesswoman 40 years ago. And like it's fascinating to see her because she almost like didn't have any taste for her when she was a thing, like
Yeah.
actually a thing, which like kind of makes sense because if she was like, this boss alpha woman, like, whatever, like flower arrangements, but she's also really creative. So like, I don't know, it's just interesting.
Well, I find
Yeah.
it really interesting because I think that that was peak time in womanhood where either to be taken seriously, you acted like a man. And so you were not interested in homemaking. You didn't know how to cook. You weren't good at floral arrangements. And that made you a serious businesswoman. And you couldn't do both. Like that was the frame of mind, right? It's like, oh,
Yeah.
real serious businesswoman can't wear pink because that's not a serious color.
Yeah, it was like
Yeah.
being a businesswoman was an act of rebellion. And so embracing any type of the like
But
preconceived
yeah,
notions would
Mhm.
it
be
is.
falling into that. Yeah.
Yeah, and, like, making the point to Susie at, like, now, like, 40 years later, like, to look back and be like, "Do you realize, like, now, like, what was actually happening?" And, like
Yeah.
and that's why, like, to back to the point of you're talking about, like, factual, like, stating things, like, I really liked that about it because, opinions and all of that are so emotionally swayed, but, like, there was
Sure.
just so much, and it and, like, even her expressions, like, throughout it, it was like she constantly was like, "Believe what you want." Like, "This is
Yeah.
the truth." Like,
Hmm.
whatever. I mean, it was yeah.
Yeah. I think that was something I found very interesting is so many people that are famous or that do these documentaries, they're very flowery and it's like they've got
Hmm.
these great one-liners that when they say them, they sound amazing. When you
Yeah.
think about them, there's really not that much substance to them. And she didn't have that.
No.
She didn't drop anything that like I would quote regularly as like a flowery affirmation. But as an example of one of the ways she talks about things is I have two mottos. One is learn something new every day. And the second one is when you're through changing, you're through. And like
Yeah.
it doesn't it doesn't, it's not flowery, it's not beautiful, it doesn't sound overly deep, it's kind of simple. But I think that that's very a good example of how straight to the point she is and how she embodies that like you can care about cooking and entertaining and creative floral arrangements and all of these things and also not be a very touchy-feely person.
Yeah. Well, and I think that like those things are typically gone hand in hand with like wanting the love and admiration and the warm like feeling of family and love and friends and all, right? It's like most people assume it's done for those things, and to her it's art and it's a business. And it was expected, and then it was a way she could do things better than other people. She could do something that was really good since she was never good enough
Yeah.
growing up, right? That was something that like she could do that was good enough. And it wasn't about like making somebody feel a certain way or making herself feel a certain way through it. It
Yeah.
was art to her.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting to me the idea of the perfection that was touched on a lot throughout the documentary. She
Yeah.
has a desire for perfection. She struggles with imperfections and she's like trying to learn how to handle it. And then one of the things the documentary kind of pointed out is how many women didn't like her because of
Hmm.
how perfect she was. And it was like, that's unattainable. And it made me think about how we self project things that make us feel small and we'll
Yeah.
say, well, you existing and being really good at this makes me feel not good. So therefore, you can't be good at this thing.
Right.
And
Right.
it's just a really weird, like, it's very normalized to be like,
Yeah.
well, Margot Robbie looking beautiful while pregnant is not fair because I don't get to look that way when I'm pregnant.
Right. Right.
Like,
Like,
she can't exist. It's interesting to me that idea.
yeah, it's a bizarre concept of reality when you think that like two things can't be true at once and that
Mhm.
everybody has to live the same lives, and that we're all compared on the same scale.
Yeah.
What was the first part? Like when you're done, what was it again? The exact words?
When you're through changing, you're through.
When you're through changing, you're through. And what was the first one?
Learn something new every day.
Learn something new every day. Yeah. That I know. I love the simplicity in that too. I just really love that when you're through, you're through. Like, and maybe that's again like the season of life that I'm in, but I realize, this time last year and a half ago or whatever, I was chasing the next big opportunity that's put in front of me, but like, I was through like
Yeah.
for a little bit, and I just think there's so much more wisdom in that. There's so much to dig into it. She's so smart.
I think there is a lot of wisdom to it. It sounds overly simplified at first, but also I think one of the problems, we'll look back in like 40 years at this decade and say, wow, we were really overthinking this.
Yeah.
And like on
Yeah.
this constant pursuit of I have to change and I have to do all of these things and I need to know all the therapeutic language. And it's like at a certain point, you just have to say, I've done the work and I've done it and that's it. This was not in the documentary, but I saw a clip in an interview and Martha Stewart was being interviewed by some, I don't know, TV person. And they were like, did you ever struggle with imposter syndrome?
Mm.
And she said, no, I didn't know what that was. I don't think you should know what that is. People used to congratulate me for breaking through the glass ceiling. And I said, what glass ceiling?
Yeah.
And I thought that was really, in a way, powerful. I know that avoiding your feelings is not the way, but go ahead, Biz.
Well, thank you. Learning something new every day. And that, like, the thing is people grow to the extent they want to and they choose to. And so, like, the wisdom is like, one, like, never stop learning and like growing and like learning something new every day. But when you're through, you're through. Like, know that you're done with that one thing and like do something else. And like, but I love that they're tied together like they are, because to me, even though it ends with like when you're through, like it's like a permanent thing, it's actually like an encouragement to always keep going,
Yeah.
like continuously.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love that loop. And I love because it like really to me like simplifies literally what life is. That's all it is, folks. Don't complicate it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I mean it's symbolic of like also acknowledging that you've completed something because it gives you time to pause and celebrate like, hey, guess what? I did great at this thing and I don't have to beat myself up about where I am with it anymore. I can now go learn this thing.
Yeah.
Ooh, I like that. So
Yeah.
this is also like sidebar new thing that I learned about myself is that I'm seeking permission to do what I want to do. And that is what fucked me up when my dad died. It wasn't like my attachment to like my identity being attached to his existence, like is what I was saying. It's
Mhm.
that I lost the person to grant me permission to do what I wanted. And then God bless my husband, he refused to be the person to answer those questions and is like making me do it on my
Yeah.
own. So I had that huge revelation about asking for permission. That was a big one too.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, how do you guys feel about like the sidebar of Martha Stewart saying, like, I don't think you should know what those things are, like living in the blissful ignorance? Maybe we've lost that art a little bit.
Yeah.
So I do think there's something to that. It also reminds me of Diana Kokoska, right? Like selling 100 and something homes her first year. And she's like, well, nobody told me I wasn't supposed to. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
you just go do it, right? I think like there is a little bit, and I hate to say it like this, and it's kind of true of like in today's day and age, it's a little harder than it was then to not be super aware of imposter syndrome. And I think back on things like when I was younger, the things that I wanted to do, and not younger like 3, younger like 13, 14, 15. And like, I wanted to be the first female president. I wanted to be in the Olympics for soccer. And I was like painting a path towards those things. And it never occurred to me that I couldn't, or that I shouldn't, or that somebody might tell me that that wasn't for me. Like, it never occurred to me.
Right.
And so I think that like that thinking is really cool. And it would be so cool if we were all left up to our not our own devices, because I think that other people make us grow even more, but if we were all just left with our wildest imagination and our dreams, unfiltered by what lane we're supposed to be walking in, the crazy things that people would come up with. Unfortunately, that's not reality, you
Yeah.
Dude,
know?
but you know what though? There are little whispers and ripples of that. And these
Sure.
like those young whippersnappers, right? Like we've talked about.
Mhm.
And that like I think the spark has been, I'm excited. That's one
Yeah.
of those things I get hopeful about.
Yeah. And I think our generation will be known for having crippled ourselves with too analyzing our every thought.
Yeah.
And like I think about it sometimes when therapists talk about when you come in and you talk about your feelings, there's some people who will come in and perfectly logically explain the situation and how they felt. And they will think that that means they have felt their feelings, and it
Right.
doesn't. And sometimes I wonder if that's what we're doing with everything else, where we're like, well, I named that I have imposter syndrome. So therefore, I have dealt with it,
Yeah.
and we haven't.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of truth to that. Years ago I heard this quote, and it like stopped me in my tracks, and somebody asked, "Are you a vulnerable person, or can you talk about vulnerable things?" And I was like,
Oh.
"Oh shit."
Ooh.
I was like, "I'm really good at talking about vulnerable things, but then like I definitely have lines, as we all should. Like we're all entitled to
Yeah.
privacy and things." But like, I was like, "Oh my gosh." And I started examining like, do I actually I may let my thoughts go there, but do I have those conversations or make space for those conversations with other people? And I'm very grateful to people like Kyle Evans, right, who sees a lot of things in black and white. And if I know I'm on like a loop, or my thoughts are getting away from me, and I call him and things are clear as day to him, and I can say like, "Hey, I need your take on this, but first I need to be like seen or heard, or
Mhm.
tell me if I'm being like out of line with this train of thought because I feel myself spiraling." And then it's like, "Okay, well, let's figure out what brought you there. What do you need to feel to get through it, and what's your like actions to take the next step to like get out of it?" And where are you going? Because I think there's a dangerous place of getting stuck in certain feelings, because I think what you're saying is true, Ashley. Like we name things and identify them, and then we think that we've dealt with them because we can rattle off this long list of things that we're like, I'm so self-aware and I know that I struggle with this, this, and this. But have you done the work? But then I think the other side of that is people then get so into it that they get stuck. And
Yeah.
there's no other side, and those things become your identity. And
Yes.
your identity is now just like living with those things and how it's affected you. And so there has to be some healthy balance of like, I'm naming this so that I understand what it is and so that I can find resources to help me. And like, I'm going to walk through it and get to the other side.
Well,
I'm safe to be seen. Yeah, like, okay, so cue the entire monologue I just gave, and you
Yeah.
just breaking that down, and, like, really, I mean, like, I just like, that was really inten I'm so glad I didn't interrupt you and let you get that all the way through that, um, and let you get all the way through that because, like, that is exactly the extreme ownership that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Like, I have got to put up or show up in, like, the best form of myself
Yeah.
to earn y'all's friendship, to earn the seat at the table and all these things, right? And, like, yeah, girl. Mm. But it is, but the whole part right there, you're talking about your identity. Like, girl, I
Yeah.
got stuck in that. I got stuck in that hard. And that's what depression is. And like, I mean,
Yeah.
that's but that's the thing. It's only you and you in the arena. It's you and
Right.
you in the
Right.
arena. And that's it. Oh God,
yeah.
Katie. God, you just like read me like a book. I'm so glad I gave that monologue ahead of time, so we already know the healthy place I'm at now, and I'm not gonna say it in a defensive way. But yeah.
The other thing that I really love about all of this with Martha Stewart is that I think she is the epitome of the way men think.
Oh my God, yeah. That was so good, too. Yeah. Yeah.
This is not to devalue men who are struggling with imposter syndrome or have those types of things, but I just think on the whole, there are fewer men that think to themselves, I don't know if I'm qualified for that. So
Can you?
just like in general, I don't think that they have it at such a high frequency. And like, so a lot of what she did throughout the documentary and what made her so hilarious is that is so like, she is so traditional, homemaker, perfection, all the beautiful woman. And then she says something that you're like, that should come out of a man's mouth. What? What I think is a great Martha quote to symbolize how different she is from people, what you might expect, is when they were talking to her about her newfound male relationships and how she picks and chooses men, basically. And she says, it doesn't interest me so much to know, oh, Charles, how do you feel this second? I don't care, actually.
I was dying during that. Although I did think it was really interesting that she said, I want to know what you're thinking and I want to know what you're thinking about. But she multiple times was like, I don't care that much how you're feeling.
Yeah, I don't care. Just so not what you would expect. And
Do you think, okay, did I miss it in the documentary, like talking about her relationship and stuff? Because she seems like she's got a pretty good relationship-ish with her daughter, even though,
I wish they had interviewed the daughter and I wish we
yeah,
heard more about it. It sounds like they do have a great relationship.
Now.
yeah,
Now,
now. And like, I think that that's really important. And I wish they would have done that more too.
yeah, I would have liked to hear more about that journey and that growth because I from what it sounded like, it was hard for her and motherhood was maybe not what she expected. But they didn't really dive into it. I would love to know more about it.
Well, and that's like kind of, I think a little bit like I resonated because like her business basically like blew up at like the most, galactic scale possible.
Yeah.
And then like it was the way that kind of came out in the documentary was like, and then her daughter was like, do you even know what roast is? Like a roast me is. And she's like, no, it's fine. Fuck it. And like,
No imposter syndrome for Martha.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
And then like her daughter's like totally like, okay, well, I tried, like, and like enjoy and like let her, like, did not try harder to make her understand what I mean, like, so just the dynamic that had happened. And then the fact that she got like high AF with Snoop, like just sitting there and then admitted it, like right there was like, yeah, that's why we got cool. And so like, I just think like that, like you talk about vulnerability, and stuff. And yeah, Katie, the real whole thing when you were talking about that, I was like, oh my God, I'm so like, cause my problem was that I was too vulnerable. I wasn't protecting myself. And then you become a doormat all the time.
Yeah.
And so like I had the exact opposite problem. I'm like having to learn how to reel in. And thankfully I stumbled upon a kind-hearted soul like you that took care of me and didn't do bad things. So thanks. But yeah, so I lost it again. I can't, y'all, that just really rocked my world. I'm sorry, Ashleigh, bring me back to Martha.
Okay.
Like, thank you. I'm also glad that it got recorded, and I hope that Katie is able to figure this out in some way in editing, that it streams together in a conscious way that is real.
Real life, baby. Sometimes you got conversations and they spark something else. I would love to touch on Martha's marriage. And
Oh my gosh, please.
Dude.
First of all, while she's painted as very uncaring in the documentary, it was very evident that she still is very hurt by the way her marriage ended, and to the point she couldn't even talk about it. And it's been 30, 40 years. I'm not exactly sure, but it's been, and she's still not. She was like, no, just take the pain from the letters. I gave those 2 already. I can't talk about it. That was really interesting to me. Such a stark contrast from all her other like, I don't care. But then back to Martha acting like a man sometimes. She's going on about how his affair, you should leave a man if he cheats on you, and it's the worst thing he could ever do. And the documentary people are like, didn't you have an affair? And she goes,
Yeah.
yeah, that didn't count.
Yeah.
She goes, it didn't mean
Yeah.
anything. Like,
It's like, that was an attractive Irishman. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
yeah.
It's like I wouldn't have blown up a marriage. Like
So first of all, let's talk about the fact that like all of that comes to light very early in the documentary. Like I sat down not knowing what to expect, and probably like 20 minutes in, my jaw was just on the floor. I was like, this
Same.
is like, you so casually are telling this story. Like, it sounds like such a beautiful story of like, her dad was really mean. She met this nice man who like whisked her away, and they had this beautiful wedding and this honeymoon that was elaborate. And then she kisses someone on her honeymoon. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
I
She's like,
literally,
it was just a beautiful place.
she goes, I wish for everyone to have a moment like that. Ma'am, I do not. I do not. But like, then yeah, the whole thing with like, she was so hurt and so betrayed by his affair. And I know that I think for her, some of it had to do with like, again, her entire identity and business was about homemaking, and he
Mhm.
had the affair in their home. And so
Yeah.
this thing that she had created that was beautiful and all of that, he then brought another woman in and like betrayed
Yeah.
her.
Well, and it was somebody she had invited to live in their guest house, so
Right,
extra betrayal level and everything.
right. But it was, and of course, like I'm not a licensed anything. Um, my head was reeling with like, okay, let's not jump to conclusions to analyze her, but like she is very dismissive of her affairs and what she did. And seemingly very hurt. I mean, those letters were painful to read. Very
Yeah.
painful. And she doesn't seem to really like embrace the emotion of pain. It feels kind of like anger and that betrayal. Like she kept talking about betrayal. I think
Mhm.
she may have said pain a couple times, but it was mostly betrayal, not the feeling of being hurt, but the feeling of being wronged. Um, and I just kind of wonder how much of this led into like the entire life that she led, because she grew up, right? She said her dad was really mean, likely an alcoholic from what she said, although she didn't identify him as that. Um, and then she found this man that seemed to be the opposite. And it's like she let herself hope for something good in the world. And then that turned out really poorly. And so she just decided to not give people a chance to mess with her feelings and like guarded
Yeah.
it. It was just a very interesting perspective for me. And I don't want to speculate on how I might categorize her based on those things. I will say it did draw me to doubt a few of the things that she said later in the documentary, because I was like,
Mhm.
your perspective is very interesting. Like your wrongs weren't wrong because you have a justification for them. And you wouldn't have even brought them up. His wrongs were very wrong because they were against you. And so then I start wondering about like other things that she told. What did she skirt over or paint in a different light? Because in her head, that's how it is. And
Yeah.
everything was solely purposed to like drive her goals, I guess. I don't know. It was a really
well,
I
to
had to
that point,
rewind the beginning like 5 times because I was like, what is happening?
well, and to your point, that's why I like that she was so factual with like the things that she actually said. And like, I don't know, Ashley, if you're planning on talking about the betrayal of her friend or whatnot. And so, okay, spoiler alert, but moving on to that with like with what you were just saying, Katie, like that was shocking to me. Like you're talking here about like a husband, and like that's like as you're talking, like, yeah, I can imagine, I can imagine. But like getting to that point to where it's her friend, and like but then her friend sitting here saying and blaming her like she knew better than
Yeah.
to make
That's the
that
part I didn't.
comment, like she incriminated me and she knew better. And it's also like then like when you understand that I believe she really was a trophy. I mean, and that whole thing, and like where they broke it down, that
Oh,
lawsuit on
Hmm.
how, it was a question, like the jury was actually questioning, like, did she lie or not? And that the nail
Right.
on her coffin was her friend over something so trivial. and like what that meant as like a movement, like, man, fuck you.
So
Like,
and
that's how I felt. Like, that's how I felt. And like, I don't know my 30,000 foot view, but what it did is it makes me, it's like Martha holding me accountable. Like we were just talking about me like bidding with my vulnerability, like we were talking about before, being too much. Like they're like muzzling myself because you can't unsay and take back those things. And like,
yeah.
what an extreme example that is.
Yeah.
And it's real. Like, what the
Yeah.
fuck?
Well, and it's interesting because that friend, made this big thing about how, well, I'm under oath, so, I have to, and I can understand that, and it sucks, and it is what it is. But she also went on to write books about it and profit off of that. And, it just almost seemed like she was happy to be part of taking Martha Stewart down, which I had no idea she was not charged with fraudulent insider trading.
Yeah.
No idea. Never paid attention to that.
No, I didn't either. So again, I'm really conflicted because I also believe she was a trophy. And I think that but I don't think anybody would really deny that. Like
Yeah.
that was, I think she was definitely a trophy. And not defending the friend here, I do also wonder, like, how did that phone call actually go down and what did she know?
Yeah.
And because Martha Stewart said that it was super, super fast and, the whole thing, it was like 2 words and she just said, okay. And then the friend gave her up, which I would assume would be to save her own ass, right? Is usually like, she
Yeah.
doesn't want to be involved in it. But also like Martha had that conversation in front of her. And based on how Martha judges her previous indiscretions, makes me wonder if there was a little bit more to it than she let on. And
I don't know. I think if she was going to stand up there on the stand, the decision was made and like she was going to say it all. And so like I think she probably said the worst thing she had. I mean, I don't know why you would hold back at that point. I mean,
Oh,
she went
that's
to freaking
true.
jail. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, she'd already made the decision. Like, you might as well like, nail her to the wall.
Yeah.
So, and I feel like, I mean, even our group of people, larger extended group, I'll say, of people, there's constantly you walk in somewhere, somebody getting off the phone and they make a passive comment of, oh, that was such a great deal. I just, and then
yeah.
and like a man, like what Ashley's saying. And so like I could see it totally being, isn't that nice to have friends that say that let you know about those things? Isn't that nice? Nah. And just passive, whatever. I could totally see that. And being like,
That's a great point. And
yeah.
what's funny to me is in my mind, if it was such a passing thing, I don't know that I'd remember it.
Probably not.
But
Probably
like,
not.
what exactly did she say? I'd be like, I don't fucking know. I was on a boat in Italy.
Right.
I had
But
other
then
things.
again, not defending her friend, but think about the time, right? And I know this wasn't as long ago, but like eh, there are times
I
in
love your
our
true crime
history
coming out right now.
where like women were more easily manipulated and not used to going through this process in that way and very used to responding to men in a submissive way. And so if she's getting pressured by people to answer things or remember things, and we all know that people misremember things in
Yeah.
trials all the time,
Oh yeah.
um, then like she may have even believed what I think it's really hard to know the truth. Um, my whole thing is just that like the way that Martha talked about her affairs made me doubt a little bit of that.
The way she talked about her affairs is actually the thing that made me the most interested in her relationship with her daughter.
Same.
Really made me want to know more.
Yeah.
I would like to note, since we just talked about the trial, by far my favorite 2 quotes of the entire documentary came from that chunk of it. Those prosecutors should have been put in a Cuisinart turned on high.
That was
know.
hysterical.
And turned on that was, but the delivery,
Yeah.
Just deadpan.
so good.
So good.
So good. I loved it. And then the part where she's talking about the reporter who's writing the most awful things about me, but she's dead now. Thank goodness no one has to put up with her anymore. And then did you see she's not fucking dead?
Oh no, I didn't see that.
She's not dead.
She's not dead. She wrote an article that said, "I'm alive, bitch."
Savage! I told you she was talking to those bitches in their bedrooms. I told you. She's not dead. I love it. Man, I see these are the things that make me think I'm a little evil. And then I go to my head and I'm like, no, but Martha's awesome. Like,
It's hard. It is hard. So we were having a conversation in a chat, and somebody was like, "I think I need to turn the Martha Stewart documentary off. I already don't like her, and I'm not liking her more through this." And part of me really wanted to like jump in and defend it and be like, "No, she's an icon. It's so good." And then I was like, honestly, it's not the easiest thing to defend her.
No. But
no.
like it is, I kept saying it's fascinating because there's a lot I don't agree with, and there's a lot that I'm like, ooh, girl, no, like, ooh, girl. Or what's that Taylor Swift? Oh, we don't want to do that. And the whole thing is so fascinating. Even Biz, like I was saying, she doesn't get into like the feels of anything or what it's like to be Martha Stewart, but it is all factual. It is just so fascinating to watch how her brain works and operates and how she delivers her history and her experience as a human. And like, man, what an existence. What an existence.
Yeah. Like, I know. Like, and that's like very, like, the control she has over herself is like you were talking about Diana Kokoska level. I mean, like, look at that. I'm like, Diana Kokoska levels on Martha Stewart. I don't know, whichever one. They're both superstars at that. I mean, truly.
Yeah.
But Diana is like your grandma that's got cookies, and
Yeah.
like Martha's a
Stewart's like your
holder.
aunt that had a really cool life, and like you're
Yeah.
really excited to see her at Thanksgiving.
Martha's I'm not saying it.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm like, there's not like when I see people like Diana, I'm like, I wish I could be so much more like her. And
Yeah.
then with people like Martha, I'm like, there's parts of her attitude towards life that I would like to take and instill in myself a little bit more.
Yes.
But like, my goal is not to be as Martha-like as possible.
No.
Yeah.
Although I will say, if I could invent a dish towel that worked as well as hers, that also looked as good as hers, I would very much enjoy that for myself.
You know what though? I'm still gonna defend her because I think she represents the extreme of the sliding scale. And people like us need people to push the extreme so we have more runway to choose where we want to be. And like to sit there, and that's kind of like part of it with the lawsuit, is I think it really it highlighted what little choices she had. And also the question changed on her that she was answering, it seemed like, and like with the direction from her legal staff. And like she talked about that multiple times, like she was doing what they told her to do and not necessarily what she thought was right. And like I thought that was really interesting that she distinguished that. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah. I will say my last little bit that I really loved was that, and this is how she opened the documentary, was if you want to be happy for a year, get married. If you want to be happy for 10 years, get a dog. If you want to be happy for the rest of your life, make a garden. And I thought that was really weird at first, but the more I thought about it, the more I was like, I actually love that because it's something about tending to like that, it's creative and it's in your hands and it's tangible and it's peaceful and it's a hobby. And I think that we probably all like Biz has her stained glass thing. And that, by the way, gorgeous piece that you're working on.
Oh my gosh,
you.
stunning.
Blew me away.
Thanks.
But
That's
I was like,
fun.
it doesn't always have to be gardening, but I think there's something to be said about like getting your hands dirty with something and just letting yourself tranquil out, man, with what you can create.
I wonder also how much that helps pushed her with her career. And we talk about like people left alone with their dreams and stuff, right? And when you have a hobby or something like that and you're always excited to learn more about it, and you constantly, because like day one you don't know what you're doing, and then all of a sudden you're deep into it and you're doing all this stuff you never thought you could before. I'm having this conversation in other groups also right now of like, the times that I was most confident and trusted myself the most was when I was in the best shape, because it was me and my body battling it out, and I could trust my body and I could trust myself. And I think that there's a lot of truth that with like hobbies, and you're always learning and you're always improving and you're always giving yourself a little bit of happiness, and like you're trusting yourself to just do something you want, even for no reason. I mean, obviously like a garden can serve multiple purposes. But like you continue to get better at something that may or may not, it's not like your job, you're not going to be evaluated on a review, it's just you and that thing battling it out, and you kind of learn how adaptable you are and how much you can grow. And I think that bleeds over into other parts of your life. And with that being said, I should probably get a hobby.
Well, you have to say no to some other stuff
like,
first. Yeah. You got to make space. If you're
yeah.
going to, lovingly love you when I say
I'm
that.
making space for 25 preemie hats and blankets before Christmas. So
Good hobby. Make sure you sleep. Make sure you sleep. Or figure out how to knit in your sleep. Or
Yeah.
crochet. What are you crocheting or are you knitting?
Crochet.
Crocheting. Yeah. Send me pictures. I want to see them.
I will. I'm starting tonight.
Yeah.
Do you have all the yarn? Do you want some more yarn?
I mean, I'll always take yarn.
Yeah.
But
I'm gonna send you yarn. That's gonna be fun to buy later.
Okay. I'm making Christmas and Hanukkah ones.
Oh. Oh, all right. How do we wrap this up? I don't
Don't worry about it,
done.
Ashleigh. Just
We're
do
done.
it. Yeah, we're
We're
through.
through.
Okay.
Yeah, we're through.
We love you. Call us.
Okay, bye.
Or
Tune in next week for a business next like emotional breakthrough on the air. God, check in.